It wasn't the season that we hoped for, but at the very least, we got a good end to it. So for one last time this season and until October, what's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R for the last Seattle Kraken game and Seattle Kraken win of the season, as they, in the finale, the 82nd game, defeat the Minnesota Wild 4-3. And for the second straight game, it's a well-played game by the Kraken. They do make really one big mistake in this game with a breakaway that Minnesota is able to get, but honestly played a pretty good game and were able to take advantage of the opportunities given them back the other way. And while this game really didn't have any meaning, and actually it turned out that it really didn't have any meaning when the Flames dominated the Sharks later on to make sure that even though the Kraken did win this game, the Kraken stay in that 8th spot in the draft lottery rankings. And I gotta say, it was nice to see that even though this game had no tangible meaning whatsoever, it was still good to see that to the Kraken that didn't seem to be the case, as they were playing this game with all the heart in the world, really trying to end the season on a high note, even if it hadn't gone the way that any of them or any of us had expected or hoped it would. And that effort was there across the board, whether it was laying hits on the forecheck, taking hits on the back check, or certainly blocking shots all the way up until the final seconds of this game, with Tanev in particular blocking a couple of big shots, one of them the last shot of the game in the final couple seconds, one that clearly didn't feel very good, and again, there was really no reason for him to block that shot, other than for, just that pure desire to end the season on a good note. So then getting into the game for the Kraken, they send out basically the same lineup with just the one tweak of Tolvanen back in for Yamamoto, the fourth line being Tatar, Belmar, and Tanev. Tolvanen then jumping up into the second line with McCann and Schwartz, and then Decord in net for the Kraken in the game. And that effort that I was mentioning from the Kraken really did help them get off to a good start in this game over the first couple minutes. They get the early momentum, pressured down at Minnesota's end of the ice, aren't able to get one past Fleury though, and the Wild end up with the first power play, which the Kraken nearly kill off, but in the final seconds, one last shot on net as he curls out to the far side from Kaprizov. It's just a quick little wrist shot that I think must have caught Decord a bit off guard as it gets right past his glove over the pad and into the far side of the net to give the Wild the 1-0 lead. And while, this is probably one Decord would like to have back, Kaprizov has been tied actually for the most goals in the NHL since mid-January. So this is a guy that can definitely put it in the net, as I think everyone well knows. So unfortunately, even after everything they did well early on, the Wild still end up scoring first, and then the rest of the first period is pretty back and forth. The Wild are still a very good team, so even with the Kraken playing well, they were still going to get their chances, even at 5-on-5, which, although the Kraken, I would say, still got the slight edge in the rest of this first period, they aren't able to score, and we go to the first intermission with the Wild leading still 1-0. But then in the second period, it starts out kind of more of the same. The Kraken with the slight edge, the Wild still fighting back and getting their chances here and there. Midway through the period, they just could not stay out of the penalty box. When I say they, I mean the Wild, as the Kraken get 3 pretty much back-to-back-to-back power plays, the first of which they get some chances, but really nothing too dangerous. And then the second one, even as the broadcast is talking about how good this Minnesota penalty kill is, how few shots they allow, and even the shots they do allow are always to the outside, so it's easier saves for Fleury. They're just a very stifling kill, not allowing anything for opposing teams inside in the middle of the ice. And even as they say that, the Kraken cycling the puck around the outside. Eventually it's Schultz that just fires a puck on net from way up in the high slot above the faceoff circles, and that shot finds its way in as the Kraken tie the game on the power play. It ends up being Beniers who tips it on the way with McCann just behind him, so some traffic the Kraken were able to get out in front of the net. Even if they couldn't get the puck there for those guys to get the shot off, they're still able to fire the puck through that traffic so they can get that redirect, able to beat Fleury, and again, even the game with the power play, Beniers picking up his 15th of the season. And then the Kraken would get another power play almost immediately after Beniers scores this goal. That one, again, doesn't really go much of anywhere, so the penalty kill for the Wild going right back to being pretty good at stifling the Kraken power play. And eventually we get through the rest of the second period, still with the score knotted at 1 going into the third, which, as far as the Kraken are concerned, this season means that we have basically no idea what's going to happen. If they had the lead, that means they're probably going to win. If they're behind, they're almost certainly going to lose. And if they're behind by 2, it's already over. And in the third period, the second was kind of highlighted by the Wild inability to stay out of the penalty box. The third starts out with the Kraken having a bit of those issues, as McCann ends up getting caught for a high stick, so he goes to the penalty box just a few minutes into the third. The Wild to the power play, where they've scored on their one and only power play to this point. And once again, a goal ends up happening on this power play. But it's not a Wild goal, as late in the power play, a mishandled puck at the blue line as it was rimmed around the outside. It ends up going off of the skate or stick of a Wild player right at the blue line, drifting out into open ice where Brandon Tanev jumps on it quickly. Yanni Gourde sees the play happening as he fires off into the neutral zone. Tanev gets the puck up to Gourde. Gourde in on the breakaway and buries it past Fleury to give the Kraken, and off the post past Fleury, so a couple of times actually in this game, the puck rang off of posts or crossbars and found its way into the net instead of out of it, like we had seen happen quite a bit earlier on in this road trip. Either way, Gourde on the breakaway scores for the Kraken shorthanded, and they take the 2-1 lead. And then, pretty much immediately off the faceoff, Tanev gets caught for a high stick, goes to the penalty box. The Wild will get a few seconds overlapping of 5-on-3, which they aren't able to score on. Then the Kraken actually kill off the rest of that Tanev penalty to get through all of that while being the ones that scored on those 2 back-to-back Wild power plays. Eventually, though, we would see some 5-on-5 scoring. Unfortunately, when the first 5-on-5 goal happens in this game midway through the third, it's the Wild who end up getting it as Zuccarello just cherry picks up at the offensive blue line for the Kraken, the defensive blue line for the Wild. The Kraken just completely lose track of him. There's only one defender up by the blue line and nowhere near Zuccarello. So when the Wild get control of the puck, Zuccarello gets the pass, and there's absolutely no one anywhere near him for this breakaway. It might as well have been a penalty shot. He had all of the time in the world. He skates in and beats Decord, just shoveling it right up into the top of the net to give the Wild their breakaway goal and tie the game at 2. And things stay pretty even from there over the next few minutes, as it's starting to seem more and more likely that we could get the dreaded, meaningless last game of the season overtime. I mean, not dreaded necessarily from a fan perspective. We get to watch more hockey, and that's always fun, especially with the season ending when this game ends. But from a player perspective, even if you're going to put in a lot of effort in this game to try to still win it, even if it doesn't have meaning, you really don't want to be playing a lot of extra time, especially the guys that might be dealing with minor injuries that they're ready to start recovering from in the offseason. Fortunately, though, we would never have to worry about that, as the Kraken would end up taking the lead at 5-on-5 in the final few minutes of the game. They get some more offensive zone time, which they'd still been getting here and there over the course of the period. This time, it's Oliver Bjorkstrand who fires the shot on net from way up in the corner by the blue line and along the boards. He just kind of waited and saw his opportunity with Cartier crossing in front of Fleury's face. And sure enough, Cartier's able to get his stick on it to deflect it up above the glove of Fleury, off the crossbar and into the net to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead late in the game. For Cartier, his 11th of the season, as Bjorkstrand picks up his 39th assist. And with the secondary assist, while he wasn't able to get 30 goals, McCann does pick up his 33rd assist. So all the Kraken have to do at this point is buckle down, play some good defense. Probably will have to play some 6-on-5, as the Wild will still go empty net to try to even things up. And I mean, honestly, they're probably going to try and score twice so you don't go to overtime, but they're still trying to win all the same. The Kraken, though, had to make it a little bit more interesting, as not too long after they take the lead, they once again send the Wild to the power play, and sure enough, the Wild do go empty net, so it's a 6-on-4 opportunity for Minnesota. Fortunately for the Kraken, though, on that 6-on-4, while the Wild do win the opening faceoff and are able to set up, the Kraken just kind of turtle up around the net. Eventually, a shot on net is either saved by Decord or blocked by Alexiak. Either way, Alexiak ends up with it. He gets it to Tanev, and Tanev fires it at the empty net, but it's blocked at the blue line by Faber. It bounces off of him, though, right to Gourde, who then skates past him down the ice with the puck on a breakaway. This time, it's a shorthanded breakaway without a goaltender, so he skates it into the net to give the Kraken the second shorthanded goal, though technically I think it just goes down as an empty netter. Gourde's second of the game, his 11th of the season, and that does pretty much put it away. Or so you would think, as the Wild get into the offensive zone right off the ensuing faceoff, get right back to 6-on-4, pulling Fleury once again from the net to get the extra skater on the ice, cycle the puck for just a couple of seconds, fire a shot through a ton of traffic. I don't think Decord ever saw anything even leading up to the shot, much less the shot come in. So when it gets through the traffic, it doesn't hit Decord, goes into the net, and gives the Wild the power play goal, and brings them right back to within 1 with still about a minute left in the game. Actually, I think it was even closer to a minute and a half, so still plenty of time with, again, assuming they can get to an empty net and pull Fleury for a third time. The Wild will definitely have a chance to try to even this one up, come back from 2 down in the final couple minutes, and send it to overtime, which, again, from a fan perspective, great, but yeah, from a Kraken fan perspective, maybe not so much, since you would have blown a 2-goal lead for the second time this season in the last few minutes of a game to get to that overtime. Thankfully though, the only real fireworks in that last minute and a half of the game were Joey Decord trying for the empty net as he got a chance with a puck on his stick to fire it down the ice, but it gets blocked on the way by Faber, never even gets through the neutral zone. So it was at least fun to see him give it that one go. You could kind of tell that he was a little disappointed that once again block by Faber ended up happening. This time it doesn't bounce to a Kraken player to hit the empty net. Still, the Kraken are able to kill off the rest of the clock to take this one with, again, like I said in the beginning, that huge block from Tanev on the last shot in the last seconds, which had him laying on the ice and guys coming to, say their thanks to Tanev for sacrificing his body in the dying seconds of a lost season. Either way, the Kraken survive it to get this last 4-3 victory, ending their season 34, 35, and 13. So just the one win or 1 point under NHL 500. So still a lot better than the inaugural season where they only had 60 points that year and ended up getting the 4th spot in the draft lottery. Now with 21 more points, they're still somehow in the 8th spot. It's just been that much of a middling season for a ton of teams in the Kraken. Well, it would have been nice to be on the top of that and in the playoffs. They at least got the second best situation of not being just outside the playoffs. They at least get a pretty decent pick in the first round. But again, we can get into all of that and how different guys finished the season when we do the full season recap video here sometime in the next week. As far as this game specifically against the Wild, like I said in the beginning, it was just really nice to see that the players didn't quit on this season, even though this was a meaningless game. Really true in the last 2 games, the one in Winnipeg against the Jets, and now this one against the Wild, just the Jets are a better team, so that one wasn't able to go the Kraken way. Well, this time, even with the Wild still being a pretty good team, and obviously that was the case the last couple times the Kraken faced them, the Kraken were able to come away with this one and at least end the season on a high note, and hopefully can carry that along with the frustration and chip on their shoulder from how this season went going into next season and get off to a better start there. Beyond that though, I really don't know what else there is to say. Obviously, it wasn't a game that really meant much of anything. In fact, it didn't mean anything at all because of that Flames win later on. The only way it could have meant anything is if the Kraken had won this game and the Flames had lost theirs. The Kraken would have dropped to the 9th spot in the draft lottery odds or draft positioning. But again, the Flames won that game pretty convincingly against the Sharks, so it didn't matter what had happened in this game with the Kraken. So at the very least, this is definitely a better way to end your season than going into a couple of months without the Kraken when they finished the season on a 5-game or 6-game losing streak. It would have been a 5-game losing streak. So yeah, it's definitely nice to see them get the one win there to end that losing streak and go into the offseason on at least that little bit of a high note, even with the disappointment of not getting to watch more of them in a playoff series coming up here this weekend and into next week. With that though, as always, we close out this last R&R of the season with the Kraken 3 stars, which one more time are brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. Really a huge shout out to all the patrons over there that have been with this the whole season. There's not a ton of us, so I'm glad for the input that some of you have been able to give over the course of the season, helping with deciding these 3 stars. It's been fun. Hopefully we'll get some more people in there next year to help decide those things. And still, if you do want to jump in and help decide the Kraken Awards here, I'll be putting those polls out over the course of the next few days. I've got a bit of a busy weekend, so maybe somewhere early on next week we'll get those polls out and we'll decide the Kraken Awards. Other than that, again, a big shout out to the patrons. We'll be keeping that going certainly next season with the Kraken 3 stars. But with all that said, for the final Kraken 3 stars of the season, the first star is clearly Yanni Gourde. A fantastic game, had a great game against Winnipeg and really follows it up with a great game here. Wasn't his best season overall. Again, we can get into that in the season recap, but he's finished strong and hopefully can keep that fire into next season, or reignite it, I suppose. No reason really for him to keep that fire all the way through the next few months. So find a way to restoke it and go right into next year the way he finished this year. He gets the 2 goals, both of them short-handed, or at least on the penalty kill. The second one, obviously, the empty netter, ends up getting 11 on the season, tying Ty Cartier, who I think Cartier is going to be an honorable mention for me. I think my second star is going to be Brandon Tanev. Tanev had a fantastic game. He does get 2 assists in this game, both of them on the Gourde goals, on the shorthanded goals for Gourde. And then the third star, I'm going to go with Oliver Bjorkstrand. Oh, and Tanev also, like I've already mentioned a couple of times, that heroic block at the end of the game, which he really didn't need to do. It's just the Brandon Tanev way. He's going to lay his body on the line even when there's really no good reason for it. So then with the third star, like I said, Oliver Bjorkstrand, he gets 2 more assists in this game. and ends the season leading the team in assists with 39. And a fantastic season from Bjorkstrand, really one of the few Kraken players that improved from last year to this year. So hopefully more guys can jump on that wagon going into next season. But at least for Bjorkstrand, the all-star for the Kraken this season, it was truly an all-star season for him. I don't necessarily think that I would pick him as the MVP, but we'll see what happens. Maybe he'll be one of the nominees, and you guys could pick him as MVP as far as the channel is concerned anyway. Until then, though, for this game, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. How you felt about, just the one last win, going into the season on a little bit of a high note, even if it would be nice to be watching the Kraken for this next week and hopefully even the next month. Just wasn't in the cards this year. Hopefully it is next year. But until we get to the off-season content, might even have one more power rankings if I can get it out tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll have the Kraken Awards once all the voting comes in. We'll have the Kraken recap. Still a busy next couple of weeks as far as videos here are concerned. Until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.